as many of you guys know, there was a second assassination attempt on President Donald Trump's life over the weekend. And well, not everyone's really taking it seriously. Those on the far left seem to just kind of brush it off as, they missed, but they didn't really do anything. No harm, no foul. But ultimately, for the rest of us in the country who do love our country and do want presidential candidates to run for office without, potentially being killed, this was a really, really gut-wrenching time. Unfortunately, the White House doesn't seem to understand it. Instead, they don't really care about the rhetoric that they've been spewing, the hate speech that they've been spewing from the White House podium for quite some time now. Case in point, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre has been standing at the podium really kind of just trying to lynch Donald Trump at this point. What she's been doing is stirring up the rhetoric against President Trump by saying things like he's a threat to democracy and vilifying him. And well, when she was asked to tone it down or whether Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will tone it down, this was her answer.
Just to clarify, so you're saying that the president and vice president believe that former President Donald Trump should be toning down his rhetoric?
So I'll say this. President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat that the former president represents to our democracy. He's been clear-eyed about that.
So President Donald Trump is the threat to our democracy, not the individuals who have manipulated their own primaries to make sure their politically, advantaged candidate could advance in the primaries, make their way onto a presidential ballot, and then get pushed into the White House. No, they're not the threat to democracy, of course. But again, folks, this is all intentional. This is to stir up those on the far left to go out and commit acts like we just saw again this weekend. Joining me to discuss is Jim Pfaff. He's the president of the Conservative Caucus, and he joins us now. Jim, thank you for joining me again. The White House not stopping when it comes to spewing hate. We saw the press secretary there pretty much just saying that nothing's going to change when it comes to the rhetoric that they've been using for quite some time. They still view Donald Trump as a threat to democracy. What do you make of all of this?
Politics is a pugilistic sport, right? I mean, there's a back and forth, and it can be heavy from time to time. That's the way normal politics go. We're not in normal politics, and the abnormality isn't just the fact that Donald Trump is willing to be a little more hard-edged than your typical presidential candidate. He is that. But, we've got the Russia hoax, the wiretapping of the campaign, then the transition team, then the Mueller report, then 2 impeachments, then 4 lawsuits with 96 counts, criminal counts that are brought up against him, that are all of which are stupid and lame. And I mean, I can keep going on. I put up on my X profile recently a montage of all of the literally violent calls to action that Democrats, from Nancy Pelosi to Maxine Waters, name them, even Hillary Clinton, literally violent calls to action that they were putting out against Donald Trump. It's absurd for the White House to come out like this. I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre really needs to apologize to the American people. That was the most absurd thing that I've ever heard. Donald Trump is being threatened by their actions, not by his.
Yeah. And we constantly see with Democrats, they constantly want to toss the blame back onto President Trump because they themselves don't want to condemn this. At the end of the day, they're all, sadly at the advantage point here when these things do take place. And they just don't want to have to stop their own people. I mean, time and time again, Jim, we see it, right? When it was the congressional baseball shooting, when we saw the BLM riots, when we saw the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearing, violent protests. I mean, these people are radical, and they're the ones that are spewing hate in this country, and they're also stirring up violence throughout our country. And yet they sit there and they have agencies like the FBI on their side, so they pretend like, oh, it's not us, it's those on the far right. But again, conservatives really haven't done anything violent, especially compared to those on the left. And so it's almost laughable that we're able to kind of brush this off this way. But I wanted to bring up somebody who was brave enough to speak truth to power. CNN contributor Scott Jennings was able to give CNN the cold hard facts about spewing this narrative that it's both sides. He did a great job detailing this on CNN. So let's just take a listen.
But the rhetoric is on both sides. It's coming from the right.
The rhetoric,
it's coming from the left.
The rhetoric. They have tried to kill this man twice. Okay, He got shot in the ear, and this guy was sitting up shop outside of a golf course to try to kill him this weekend. And I know after something like this happens, it's very fashionable to, talk about rhetoric on both sides. Donald Trump is the target, okay? He's the current target, and it's happening, and it's happened again. And honestly, we have to have a conversation about elections. If you lose an election, the country's not going to come to an end, okay? What I want Democrats to do, honestly, is to say, it's okay. Like, if Donald Trump wins, democracy will not end, the Constitution will not end, we're not going to live in a dictatorship, there will not be a bloodbath. All the things they say that are totally fabricated, to me, it would be a good day to stop doing that.
I mean, I think he's right there. They constantly want to stir up these political tensions by dropping these, I will just call it dog whistles at this point, where they're sitting here pretending like, oh, yeah, he's the threat. And then they shift blame here, and they're doing it again. Jim, what do you make of all of this?
Donald Trump is not a threat to anybody. Donald Trump is not going to destroy democracy, so-called. I hate the word democracy, by the way. We are a republic. But this is a problem of Democrats. Democrats are fashioning and have fashioned over the last two or three decades, when they've had power, a program that is more and more socialist. Right now, it's outright socialist Marxist, because that's precisely what Kamala Harris is promoting and has promoted for years. She was the most left-wing member of the Senate by far. I mean, even worse than Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, if you can believe it. So the agenda is clearly a threat to the freedom of the United States. I do not accept the things that these people are saying when I know for a fact they want to shut down what you and I are doing right now. They do not want X to be able to operate. In fact, they just threw a backwards fine on SpaceX, really going after Elon Musk. There was about a $700,000 fine for a SpaceX launch last year. That's just out and out lawfare. He has supposedly broke some environmental thing, it's just absolutely stupid. These people are out for blood. I mean, they literally are out for blood. They're out, first of all, to see Donald Trump taken off the stage. And I'm not saying that every one of them literally want him assassinated, but they want him gone. And they want every one of us to shut up too. That's what Joe Biden said in his creepy Philadelphia speech last year. And it's literally what Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and these people have been talking about for a long period of time. This is really a battle for the soul of our country. And Democrats don't believe in what this country was about. They are literally against it in every way, and they want to redesign our liberties if they can.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand just that, because, again, they don't like free speech. They don't like the American people speaking out against these issues. And Donald Trump represents a lot of that. He's not a regular politician, although he was a former president. He's not a politician, I would say, at all at this point. But again, they are not happy with him. They're going after him full speed. I wanted to also, since you brought up Elon Musk, Jim, and I know you're well versed on Brazil, the White House issuing a rare condemning of Brazil for banning X. We've had Mike Benz on this show. Mike Benz outlining how our own intel agency is kind of wrapped up in all of this. So what do you make of the White House coming out and condemning Brazil for banning free speech?
And Mike Benz is absolutely right. Joe Biden meddled in the 2022 elections that defeated Bolsonaro. We may have questions about what happened here in 2020. There is no question that the 2022 election was stolen from Jair Bolsonaro, and absolutely an insane Supreme Court justice that brought Lula da Silva out of prison to run against Bolsonaro because he was the only guy that might have any chance to beat him. He was literally in prison for corruption, and now he's president of the country because it was stolen. This is crazy because the people of Brazil are fantastic people. They're a wonderful culture. There's so much to love about them. I've been deeply involved with this, and I've made lots of friends in Brazil that are talking to me today. And X is now live again in Brazil, and I think it's fantastic. Elon Musk is such a great protector of freedom to the extent he has influence, and it's pretty strong. We should be supporting this guy, even when you have disagreements with him, because it's the character and the heart of what he's doing, if anything, that can save free society in the West. Because if the United States falls, everybody falls. And as I've said on your program before, I've got friends in Asia, Brazil now, as you know, Europe. They're not as much worried about their countries, although they kind of are. They're worried about our country because they know that we are the bastion for liberty worldwide. If we fall, every domino falls around the world. And it's a scary time that we're in. We got to win this election. Donald Trump needs to win on November 5th.
Yeah, I don't see a second option there. If he doesn't win, I don't see our country being able to survive. And I think that's a really key point, Jim, for us to drive home here. Brazil's very interesting. And a lot of times, Americans keep saying, oh, we should just focus on our own country. It's important to kind of look at everything because what they've done to Brazil is what they're trying to do here. But like you just detailed, we are the biggest one to kind of go after. And it's going to take a lot more work to come after the United States since we have such a great constitution. And so they're going to try, and we're witnessing as it all unfolds. But Jim, I want to thank you for joining me today. Great discussion as always. Jim, thank you again. And for our audience at home, if you're looking to follow Jim on X, his link is in the description of this interview. So make sure you give it a look over there as well. Thank you, Jim. We'll see you here soon.
Thanks. And by the way, go to theconservativecaucus.org if you'd like to find out more. Thanks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.